Good afternoon and welcome back. All right, so this tutorial is going to talk about how to draft a perfect Danshiki outfit. So I'll put a sample on the screen. So this is what Danshiki looks like. So if you have been wondering how to draft this outfit, this video will serve you or will solve all the necessary areas, questions, and confusions which you might have. Now, I have made some videos on this in my other channel, which is Mr. Redefined Clothing. And this video is for my new channel, which is Fashion Priest. So here, we are going to dissect all the important areas of Danshiki. Now, this is my customer's regular measurement. Now, this measurement is what I took for his normal senator outfit. So I will tell you what you will do on this measurement to be able to achieve a perfect Danshiki outfit. There is no special measurement needed for you to achieve a perfect outfit. The only measurement you need is just your neck circumference, your shoulder, your three-quarter length of your sleeve, your length of your danshiki, that's the top length, which is often like somewhere on the knee, on the lap, depending on the length of your customer. Then every other thing of the trouser, the waist, the hip, the lap, this is for trouser, right? And I want to also let you know that the same trouser we make for our regular hot elastic and rope is still applicable to this danshiki. So I won't bug you with more tutorials on how to make the trouser for this. So, but if you want to make a trouser for danshiki, use the same pattern which I have taught us in this channel, how to draft back elastic and rope. And I also made a video on the sewing tutorial. So do well to make use of that video to draft the trouser. But then I will focus more on the top, which is the danshiki itself. So here, if you observe, we have a chest of 50 and shoulder of 20, length of 13. Now, to make a perfect danshiki, all you need to do here is shoulder measurements plus sleeve length. No, sleeve plus sleeve again. Remember that this sleeve is on the both sides. So what this simply means is that you have 20 plus 13 plus 13. So this will give you the total value of your shoulder you need, or the dropping effect of the danshiki. So in this case, this is 20 plus 13, 33 plus 13, 46. So here you have 46 inches. Now, this 46 inches will now be divided into 2. That gives us 23. So that means for your danshiki, when you fold your fabric, you are going to fold a value of 23 inches for someone that has a shoulder of 20 and sleeve length of 13. So whatever your shoulder gave you, add it to the sleeve length into 2. That means you have to multiply the sleeve length by 2, then add it to this. You will get a perfect measurement for your danshiki. So having said that, the neck as well remains the same. Divide your neck of 18 by 6 and subtract 0.3. The answer you will get is for the width for this. Then to get the depth, you add half to the answer here to get your depth of your neckline circumference. So these things are what we are going to see in the drafting. And of course, in your regular danshiki drafting, I want to explain something for us on the board before we start drafting. If you want to achieve a perfect shoulder slope, now, if this happens to be your outfit, your fabric unfold, and your shoulder length, now, you and I know that we normally slant our shoulder by 2.5 or 3, depends on the person as well. Now, danshiki is an incorporation or a combination of both your shoulder and sleeve length being cut together. The sleeve length is not being joined differently as our regular senator outfit. So you are trying to draft a cloth that has both the sleeve and the shoulder joined together. So in that case, you and I know that if you are drafting your normal senator, you will do your shoulder by 2, that's 20 by 2, that's 10 here, plus half. Then on that half, slant by 2.5, then slope this way. Then here it becomes your armhole, right? And then your chest by 4 plus extra 2. So this is your kind of normal regular outfit. But for danshiki, the sleeve is meant to be added together in this form. So it is now a continuation from that shoulder stop. It's now like extra 13 inches to wherever your sleeve point gets to, and then extra 2 inches here for the folding. So when you slope here by 2.5 and continue in this direction, if you measure the distance from here to this point, gives you 7 inches. So that is why you must slope your shoulder by 7. Now, if by peradventure you slope this shoulder by, let's say, 4, let's say you do it by 4. Now, see what you're trying to make. You're trying to drop your shoulder this way and then go this way. By so doing, you will now have rumples appearing on the armhole region. So the slope effect of this your regular 2.5, if it continues going down that way, here will become 7 inches. So anything less than 7 inches slant in here will not give you a perfect relaxation. So we are going to see this properly on the fabric. I just want to explain on our board. So then, if I continue in this illustration, I will have my outfit in this nature, sloping by 7 inches. Then I will not drop the shoulder, this armhole, this way straight. If you drop it this way, the underneath armhole will now become longer than the outer armhole. So what do you need to do? You need to slope it in by 2 inches this way. By so doing, you have shortened the distance here. There will be no room for this armhole to be longer than this one. After you drop in by 7, you go in by 2.5 or 3 inches, depends on the person size. Then you still need to go in again by 5 or 6 inches as well. Now, the reason of going in this way is to enable this outfit to be a bit closer to the chest value. Now, when you go in by 5 inches or 6 inches this way, now you now take it down to this very point. By so doing, the chest of 50 or 51 or whatever you have will now be very close to this. Now, the excess is here will now give you that Danshiki effect that you have. But if you don't come in by 5 inches in this form, if you just drop it in this way and go down this way, it will be so big here. You will not have any perfect results or any perfect finishing on the armhole region. So the essence of coming in this form is to achieve a perfect fit on the armhole area. They're coming again by 6 or 5 inches in to enable the outfit to give you fitting close to the chest value. So this 6 inches is often the range. You can do 7 inches, 8.5, 8, depending on how slim or fitted the customer's chest value is as well. So once you go down this way, you can now use your French curve, make a curve connection that goes all through in this form. So you have your Danshiki front panel properly drafted this way. Then after that, you do your neck by 6 plus minus half, then add half to this to get a depth, and then you curve. So this is a typical example of how the front panel of a Danshiki should look like. Then the back will now be a question of raising the up region here. This up region will have extra 2.5. It goes in this form, or 3 inches this way. And then the neck width, the armhole will be a bit wider here. Then you now have your neck curve for the back panel in this form. So by the time you turn this over, you now slash off the excesses and the armhole or the shoulder points remains equal. So this is a front panel of a Danshiki, and we are going to see how this is being drafted. All right, so we want to start the drafting of the Danshiki. Now at this point, we are going to mark out our baseline. So make sure your baseline is properly marked out this way and have it all the way to this point. Then the hemline or the folding allowance might be 3 inches, 4 inches, depending on how wide or how big you want the folding to be. So you mark 3 inches this way. Then after the 3 inches, the next thing you do is connect the 3 inches for your hemming so that you can have it properly marked out. Now the next is to put your top length. So the top length we have is a length of 45. So you put a top length of 45 right there. So you have a length of 45. We want to have it to be a very long Danshiki. So you mark 45 inches here. Make sure you have it coming out, marking it twice. Then after which, you connect the line, 45 inches top length. Then after the 45 inches top length, so the next thing you're going to do is to start applying or marking your shoulder measurements plus your sleeve. Now remember that your shoulder is 20, so divided by 2, that gives you 10 for your shoulder. And your sleeve length we have is 13. So you mark 13 this way, and then extra 2 inches or 1.5 for your folding. So I have it coming out at the edge of the fabric in this form. So this is my shoulder, this is my sleeve length, and then extra 2 for folding. Then at the base, at the hem here, you mark. So here, this is my shoulder of 10 inches, which is shoulder of 10 inches this way. And this is my sleeve length of 13. Extra 2 inches for the sleeve folding. So from this point, you're going to slant or come down by 7. 7 inches is the constant or the recommended value you have. So after you have marked that, now the next you will mark is your neck circumference. So for easier calculation, I will just divide by 6, and then mark my neck width, 2.5 this way, plus extra half an inch, that's 3. So I mark 3 inches in this form. So you have your neckline coming out in this very direction. Then, now after you have marked your neckline in this form, so the next thing you will do is to join your neck edge with your slant of 7 inches. So you join from here to this very point. So make sure the line connects as straight as possible. So it goes all the way in this form as well. So go all the way in this form as well. Now that you have connected this line, you have achieved your shoulder slanting. Now let me reiterate what I said earlier. Now our shoulder was 20, that is 10, right? Then if you add extra half into that, that is 10.5. Assuming we are making our regular senator outfit, so that is 10.5. Now when you mark your shoulder plus half here, so this point is the assumed point for your shoulder slanting if you're making your senator outfit. So here gave us exactly 2.5, as you can see. So this 7 inches we marked here is a continuation of these 2.5 inches all the way down. So that why I'm trying to explain this so that you not get confused or keep asking questions, why are we making 7 inches slant or mark at this very point? So it's just like a continuation of what you have as 2.5 going all the way down. So having done that, now the next thing you're going to do is to mark for your armhole opening. Now the armhole opening is solely your choice as a designer, depending on how wide you want your armhole to be. So at this point, I will measure an armhole of 10 inches or 10.5. Let's use 10.5 inches armhole opening, then extra 1 inch. I don't want the armhole to be so wide, so I just mark 10 inches, 10.5 or 11, depending, extra 1 inch. Now, from that 1 inch 10 I marked, I can come in here by 2 inches, 2.5 or 3, still depending on how I want the inner value to be. So for this particular outfit, I'm using 3 inches to mark as my value to come in. Then I will push it, I will mark this 1 inch to this point, and then connect from this edge to this very point. So it goes all the way to this point. So this I just did here is to make sure that my armhole or that my outfit does not drop at the, the inner arm does not drop. So after this, the next thing you're going to do here is to come in again by another 4, 5, 6 inches, depending on how fitted you now want the body to be. But when you're marking whatever value you have here, make sure that you consider the chest measurement. So for this person, I don't want it to be too wide or too small, so I will use 5 inches to come in this way. After which, I will just cross-check my chest value, making sure that my chest value is still very much covered, right? So the chest we have is a chest of 51, which is around 12 3/4. Then invariably after the chest value, we have extra 4 inches or 4.5, which is going to be enough to give us that Danshiki effect. So what this simply means is that from this value now, from this mark now, I will take it all the way down to my baseline. So I will just make sure I get a perfect connection from here all the way down, all the way to my baseline. And after that, I can use my armhole curve or my hip curve to do the necessary connections coming all through, or use my freehand sketch on this one, just making sure that the curve gives you something unique. From here you curve in to this very point, so you carefully blend this inside. So as you can observe how I am taking my time to draft all of this. So once you blend it in properly, so this is what we are going to have, right? And then you now go over to your neckline. You go over to your neckline edge, and then you are going to use your neckline neckline curve, placing it in this form as well. Then you curve it in this very format. So it goes all the way in this form, right? It goes all the way in this form. So this is what it looks like. So I will cut out this. I will show you as well how to cut the back. So let's do the cutting together. Now, the reason I am leaving this video on for us to see and also understand where I will place my scissors on when cutting. So here I'm cutting the neckline first. So for easier handling of the fabric, I will first of all cut the straight line here. So this will give you control over the fabric, so that the fabric will not tilt or shift before you finish your cutting processes. Now you can now cut the shoulder slants. You can now cut from the shoulder slant. So if you are going for embroidering or monogram, it's advisable that you don't cut your neck and your shoulder slant, or rather you might still cut your shoulder slant but don't cut your neck if you are doing embroidery, because it will be easier for them to do the embroidering on a square fabric. Later on, you now cut your neck. If you're doing monogram in particular, as long as you not push your rubber, it's advisable that you don't cut your neck yet. Leave it in a very block form, cut your slanting, then take it to monogram. But if you are doing your regular sewing, piping and everything, cut your neck and cut everything together. So for this one, we're not doing embroidering or any monogram. Rather, we are going to put stones on it. So that's what they call embellishment. So you make sure that you also you drop hard objects on your material, because Jonko so used to worry a lot. So just drop all this way. Then you can now start from the base to cut this as well. So now, after cutting the front panel, so the next you are going to cut will be the back panel as well. So all you need to do for the back panel is simple. To also get the actual folding as well, place the front, then use it to cut. So I will pin this before I start folding for the back. So now we have folded for the back. So all you need to do is just to place the fabric as well. I pinned it so that I'm cutting two fabrics together, so don't get confused. The owner of this outfit has both whites and this coffee brown, so that's why I have it on double fold, right? It's easier to cut them together since you are making the same outfit for the same person. So here you must make sure you arrange the panels to align. So once they align properly this way, now where you need to focus more is just on the neck. Then the shoulder region is where we're going to focus more on. So after that, the next thing we do here is to mark 3 inches high. Now, depending on how you also join, if you want to join by it's half an inch, you use 2.5. So let's use 3. So that because we weave, weaving will take care of some of the excesses. So 3 inches all through. So you mark 3 inches all through, then from here you connect all the way to the other end. Connect all the way to the other end. Now the neck width of the back will be wider by half an inch or 0.75 so that it will correspond. And the neck depth for the width here will be 1.5. Then at the edge here will be 3 inches. That will be your neck value or your neck measurement. Then once you have gotten to that point, the next you do, bring the neckline off. Yeah. So you place it this way and connect from the edge to this one. Now, in cutting the armhole region for the other side, in cutting this armhole region, you will make sure that this armhole is a bit wider. Like it should not be equal here. So this armhole will go like 1 inch away and come in again. Now, the reason for this is that so that while joining, it will not shorten the actual width of the circumference. So here you start your cutting. Now, when you want to cut, you make sure you cut in the same direction which you have already marked. So cut all through this way. I will also show you how to join this outfit, which I have made the previous video before, but I think I will make this a complete tutorial in one video so that you will have a full access to it immediately. Then, while cutting this, observe that I will go a bit off 1 inch or 1.5 inch wider. Then I will take it in back to the width this way. So that is the most important thing. So now what you need to do here is to make sure that you fold the back panel to come in front. So this folding is like 2.5 inch or 2 inches. Now at this point, you now observe that you can now trim from the excesses, trimming them together. The back armhole region should be equal here. And you also trim the neck point. So the neck width here should also correspond. So this is how you make sure that the front and back panels are corresponding, making sure you trim very well. Please observe how this is done. Make sure you trim very well. Then you can now cut the other areas. So I just want to show you how this area is being cut as well. So at this point, the base here will be 1 inch longer. The base here will be 1 inch longer, 1 inch longer. And then after the 1 inch longer, you will now do your regular sideways cutting, making sure that the cutting is still the same. The width here will be equal. So you cut all through this way. So the next you are going to do will be the accessories, the flap, the bias, the neck cutting, and every other thing, so which I will also show you when we are sewing.